Okay, welcome everybody. This is Karma and Finding Your Liberated Mind. And at least one of you explicitly mentioned in the conversation we just had the liberated mind. I mean, karma is important, but really, why do we care about any of these basic ideas? It's because we want life to be better for ourselves and for other people. How do we free our mind from the confusions of daily life or internal pressures? So that's an important part of why we're meeting here today, also to understand karma itself. So I'm David Alexander, and I do psychotherapy, and I work with business owners and leaders and executives also to find more meaning and balance in their lives and more success. So karma, and you'll see this if you look around. Karma literally translates as action. I think just using that word is not enough, so I added a note here. It's action and the consequences of action. It's more like the actions of the world, the flow of events one after another, the flow of experiences in the world. That's the action. It's like movement of the world's society, and the world's perceptions keeps changing and evolving. So that's the real meaning of action. It's action. It's both causes and effects, actions and their consequences. Karma includes both cause and effect. And many people know that. There's a saying, what goes around comes around. Have most of you heard that one?
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's a very casual way of mentioning karma. Better than not being aware of that at all. So the original Hindu teachings also talk about karma, and the Buddhist idea of karma is a little bit different than the Hindu idea in a few ways. Um, Let me just set the tone. Sometimes we might think of karma as I did something, and then tomorrow or 10 years or maybe in another life, I'm going to have a consequence. That's part of it, but it's a very simplified view. A much more inspiring and I believe more accurate view is that we're all in a web of interrelated energy and choices and mental conceptions and wishes, and we all affect each other. And there's this giant flow of cause and effects that flow through the whole world and also to ourselves. So it's this much more subtle and interrelated web of causes and effects. And that is the Buddhist concept of karma. Um, because Buddhism doesn't believe in reincarnation. Buddhism talks about rebirth, and rebirth is happening all the time. Rebirth is recreating ourselves in each moment. We're changing. Nothing is permanent. So I think, Heather, you got the idea here. You're smiling. We're always changing. And in that rebirth, our actions lead to new effects, and those effects lead to new actions. Um, so rebirth rather than reincarnation means that our karma goes forward with us, but also in a way into the world and affects those around us and throughout the world. We're all connected. Um, and one other important point, and then I'll get more into the specifics. The Buddhist idea of karma is based on intentions. So if you accidentally, I don't know, worst case, you hit somebody with a car, but it's not your fault, something happened. If it wasn't your intention, then it's not karma. If you intentionally choose something, whether it's thoughts, words, or actions, then you're creating karma. It could be good karma or bad karma or non-producing karma. And what is that? It's an important concept. So does anyone have a comment or thought? I think I heard someone, but maybe that was just background. By the way, if you're not ready to speak, just mute yourselves, please. Otherwise, the visual jumps to any small sounds. I guess if you can all mute, that would be great. Okay, I think I took care of it. So, all right. So there's no questions, but karma is based on intentions, and it affects us in this life or in the future, and it affects other people who are influenced by our own actions. So the environment is also important. All right, there's a lot on this slide. One of the things I like to point out to make this very real, if you look at what's discussed in society, a lot of it is about people's rights. And it's true, we all have rights, but there's little discussion about responsibility. And if people violate their responsibilities, then there's punishment. But there's very little awareness that our own actions affect us and the people around us and our happiness. So I think that's something that needs to be corrected so that it's not only about I was treated badly, but also what have I contributed to this situation and how can I help change society to do better as well as myself. And I think that's an important ingredient, and karma addresses that. So one other important principle in Buddhist karma is that we are in charge of our own choices. There's no external God. The Hindus talk about kind of a God influence, which may be somewhat symbolic, but there's something outside yourself. In Buddhism, it's all up to us. We can make choices. So I'm going to pause to let everything get digested. There's a lot already, but we're affected by things that have led us up to this present moment, causes us to see the world in a certain way and to experience things in a certain way. And that can affect our decisions now going forward. And yet, when we focus and we follow good understanding, we can start to change that path. We're not victims or prisoners of our own karma. We will experience the effects of past choices, but we can make new choices based on wisdom that can help liberate us in the future. And otherwise, we're just caught in the stream and we have no ability to make any changes and improve the future. So I think that's an important point. We do have agency. We do have the ability to influence our future. Um, so there is a concept of free will. Now, our free will may be impaired if we're heavily conditioned by past history and karma. We may not see very clearly, but we can try to start separating out influences that lead us in a bad direction that is going to hurt us. And we can start to make choices that lead to liberation from karma. Does everyone get that? I'm going kind of quickly here. There's a lot implied. Yeah. Anyone have a question so far? A comment? Someone raised a hand. Kelly, yes.
Just makes me aware of like prior choices, decisions I made may have been made out of, fear or even like, that victim mentality that I carried with me my whole life as being, uh, having a brain disorder, I guess you might say. I don't know how else to term it, but I'm hopeful too. I've always known that I could make these choices, but learning more about ways to navigate it and not let my past dictate my future because it seemed to
Mhm.
really weigh me down, um, and feeling like I didn't have any other options, maybe. So I know deep down that I do, but I just felt trapped in a sense. So I'm looking more for the freedom of
Mhm.
having better options in my future and hopefully, in my own perspective, um, maybe being helping with medication is helping me also see these more clearly, where in the past I was kind of confused about some of these terms and things. So anyway, I'm
Sure.
that's all.
Okay, thank you. Yeah. sometimes in life, maybe we can all think of ways that we've done things in a certain pattern, and we repeat that pattern, and eventually a light bulb goes on and says, this just doesn't work. I have to change this. Sometimes it can take years to reach that state. What am I doing? I've been doing this all along and I'm still not happy about things. And then you get that internal motivation to change things that are not necessarily easy to change. So it can take a long time to reach that point. Sometimes it's the consequences of choices that happen in our own lives, like the way we relate to other people, and we get bad feedback, or they don't want to do business, or they're not friendly. And then eventually you realize, I've had to learn certain things myself. And you realize, oh, I can do this better. I can improve. I can pay more attention. I'm more aware now. I realize what's been going on. So it's part of the learning. It's not all bad to make the mistakes and learn from the mistakes. So the sooner we learn, the better, right? Um, but it takes some motivation, and when you really experience it, you get motivated. Um, so my last item here is finding true freedom is an important goal, and we all have great potential. Every human being has immense importance, and if we can achieve at least some or all of that potential, we're doing everyone a service, including ourselves. So this is very important. We don't always realize, or we hardly ever realize, how important each of us is having this life and what we can do with it. So, again, I mentioned this. Buddhism doesn't believe in a permanent self or soul. There is no like a little sphere that is in our body. Then if we die, we go to the next body. It's not like that. The self is made of these perceptions and habits and memories. It's like a package of these perceptions that we carry and that go forward with us. And they have their own momentum, and they come, but eventually they dissolve and they take on new shapes. So that's the Buddhist idea of self, is that it's not a substantial thing. And once or twice I've had people in these meetings look inside and look for a self. Where's the self that we think about? Has anyone located it? If you have, right, you can raise your hand. I doubt it though. Do you ever find a self inside? Where am I? Oh, the thoughts keep changing, the experiences keep changing. So there are tendencies and memories and energies that carry forward, but they're always changing. There is no fixed self. That's I. It's important. And the question I ask sometimes is, if there is no permanent I, what are we protecting when we get protective? Yeah, Linda, you wanted to say something? You're muted. Can you unmute? Well, if you wanted to say something, Linda, unmute and let us know, okay? Or you can type it in the chat. So, karma is inevitable. In other words, when we take an action or make a choice, there are always consequences for actions that are done without seeing the whole picture. We're going to get to that. How do we liberate the mind? So there are actions that do not produce karma, but a lot of our actions, which are based on desire or aversion or ignorance, those actions tend to create results in the future because we're not fully seeing the whole picture. Um, we don't have to believe in multiple lifetimes, but in a sense, if you see it as a web of time flowing, we are creating, impacts in the world that's at us, and that is carrying forward even after we pass away. in a sense, we're not gone. Our destiny and our legacy carries forward. So that's where the karma carries into future lives as well. There's more to it, but I'm not going to get too mystical about it. This is when Buddha was asked, "What is your teaching? Can you just summarize it for me?" So, someone was impatient. They didn't have time to read the whole book. He said, "Avoid doing evil, cultivate good, and purify your mind." That's the teaching of all Buddhas. So, to purify your mind is to get free of karma, so you can see fully what's going on in the world and around you. How many of you have ever taken an action when you didn't fully realize what the effects would be? Anyone? Yeah. So, the idea is if you purify your mind through correct action and mindfulness and ethical behavior, you purify your mind and you can start to take actions that don't leave karmic traces and tend to lead to liberation. All right? So purifying your mind means seeing fully, awake, enlightened, which is a Buddhist term. Enlightenment means waking up. It's waking up, like out of a bad dream, waking up and seeing everything. So I would like us to just meditate for 3 minutes together. You can turn off the camera if you wish, and or leave it on. We're all friendly here, but I'm going to set a timer for 3 minutes. Try to sit in a comfortable upright posture. Keep your eyes half open, half closed, and look downward so you're not focusing on anything. And and we'll sit and meditate for a few minutes. You can let your thoughts free. Observe your thoughts, observe your breath. Feel free to not judge anything. See what shows up. It's turning the light of awareness inside. Okay, I'll let you work on that. Okay, so I do like, if you don't mind turning on the cameras, that it is helpful to see each other. So I hope you each felt a little bit of spaciousness, allowing yourself to think or not think. By the way, we're not supposed to get rid of all thoughts. That's not what meditation is. But hopefully the mind kind of settles in and feels more comfortable. And maybe the thoughts slow down a little bit, give you space to breathe and feel some spaciousness. Um, I just spent 5 weeks. During the week, I was upstate in Woodstock, New York, where there's a monastery, a Zen monastery. So I would meditate with them Tuesday to Saturday every morning for a few hours. And as I do more of that, I noticed my mind has opened more and more to enjoying the present moment. It's a cliche, but I'm really experiencing it. Um, so I would come out from meditation and see the pebbles on the ground and just say, they're so beautiful. Just like they weren't anything remarkable, but all these pebbles and some leaves and the wind blowing and the birds flying and chirping and taking it all in, letting it all in. When we let go of the mind that's holding on to things, holding on, when we let go of that, the world becomes a really beautiful place. So, I mean, not everything in the world is beautiful, but even the tragic things can be seen with a bigger mind, and maybe we handle it better. So let's continue. Touching briefly on the middle way, you may have heard of that. That's another Buddhist concept. In fact, one of the first things that Buddha taught when he fully awakened was not to starve yourself and not to overindulge yourself, to live a balanced life, to eat when you're hungry, and not to cling to any kind of extreme ideas, including the idea of nihilism, which means when we die, we're gone, it's all over, that's it, or eternalism, a belief that we go on forever. And his teaching was neither one is true. So there's a more subtle perception of continuity, and yet things do keep changing. And it's relevant to karma as well, because that's this web of the stream of experiences and interactions that we're all interdependent. And as we become more clear in our perceptions, as we let go of more ignorance, the three poisons are called the so-called three poisons are greed, wanting more, anger or hating things, pushing things away, and ignorance, just not seeing what's going on, like being blind. Those are the causes of bad choices. As we clear those up, we become more free to choose things that lead to liberation. So the more we can start to cut through the ignorance, greed, and anger by acting with wisdom, we start to be more powerful. So if there's a stream of life pulling us along, as we get stronger, we can swim upstream more easily and set our own path to get to the other side of the stream. So sometimes we need a community or a teacher to help. If we're in the middle of a very difficult situation or our mind is full of conflict, sometimes it's very important to have a community or a teacher as well as the teachings to help us make good choices and make better karma for the future. Any questions or comments? I think you're all touched by that. I mean, that's our experience, right? Trying to overcome these pulls that are built into our thinking and our emotions. The emotions are okay, but when they're purified, they serve us. When they're complicated and based on trauma, the emotions may not help us. Yeah, Tori.
Yeah, I would just add maybe that like when it comes to like emotions, these are usually things that are either happen like in the future or in the past, like in your mind. Like you're stuck in some sort of a state. I was angry, I was upset about somebody. It's their fault, and I keep reinforcing that now in the present moment. And then my present moment is being occupied by that past experience. But if I just sort of create space in right now,
Mm,
all those things actually kind of dissolve away and they have no weight anymore. They become just uh, like, well, they disappear
yes.
basically. Like,
Yeah, and
and
it helps. Sometimes it's hard. Sorry, you want to say something else?
yeah, maybe that like the space in the present moment that you can experience is kind of limitless, right?
Mhm. Yes.
It becomes pretty infinite. Like, and then I feel like the more we think about the future or what happened in the past, the more narrower and like kind of it gets very tense.
Mm.
You
It's
like
okay. It is okay to think about the past and the future, but in a way that's constructive. So if something happened in the past that caused trouble for you or for other people, maybe you're thinking about how to change that, how to improve on it, understanding what happened. That could be constructive. If, like you said, if you're obsessed, this person mistreated me, I'm going to get back at them, or I'm just angry, I'm angry, I'm angry. Those kind of things don't help. And in the future, we have to think about paying taxes and maybe make plans for a vacation. But I think you're talking really about obsessing about anxiety about the future or the past. And I agree, we can do without that. Um, you get my point, Tori, right? Where certain kinds of thoughts about the past and the future are normal to function in this world, but other things get in the way. Yeah, there's a saying I'll quote Buddha. Can't go too far wrong with that. He said, if anyone has a thought, this person hurt me, this person treated me wrong, then they don't understand my teaching. So it's a high standard of seeing people, everyone's trying to make life better. Sometimes they're very confused about how to do that, and they act in a way that causes pain. But when we see fully, when we understand compassion and insight, we can let go of that. I know this is easier said than done, but with meditation and other practices, you can eventually let go of even the worst um, hurt that's happened. They can be released. And, I believe that. And there have been things that I experienced which were hurtful, and it took me several years to get over them, but I did. You can tell when you finally are mature and centered enough and you've handled it, you truly see the whole picture and you let it go. It's a good feeling because carrying around anger is painful. It's restricting. We're better off without it. Um, so, all right, I gradually made these talks more interactive. So, does anyone? Why don't each of you write or at least think about some action you've done that had positive or negative effects later? Just simply something you observed. Doesn't have to be especially profound, or it
Sorry,
could.
David. I don't mean to interrupt you, but I think Kelly wanted to say something.
Oh, is that why I heard a clicking sound? Yeah.
I'm not sure.
Okay. Sure.
It was, thank you. I was just thinking, in terms of myself, finding, liberation. Um, I internalize a lot of that negative stuff, and I hear that's ego too, but I don't know how much of it is ego, how much of it is something else, but, trying to navigate, or wanting to disengage from,
Yeah.
in a sense, that moral judgment that I
Mhm.
feel is encompassing in a lot of my interactions with people. It seems like it's a moral issue
Yeah.
versus something else, maybe. That's all.
Like they should have done this. They shouldn't do this. They should do that.
Or no, they that I feel I should have done something differently. I'm the
Oh,
one who's at fault. I'm the one who should have known better or done better, made better choices or whatever. And I feel like it's almost, in a sense, a judgment on my moral character.
mhm.
And it may just be the Midwest where I live, that it's the Bible Belt. Uh,
So
anyway.
are you saying that you tend to blame yourself more than other people? That more than you blame
Hmm.
other people?
Hmm.
Um, you know, in nonviolent communication, which is something else I talk about, the idea is not to judge yourself, but to allow yourself to mourn some decisions that were not ideal. You can feel sad about them, but that has a healing effect rather than attacking yourself. Allow yourself just to feel, I wish I hadn't done that. When that feeling happens, then you can process it. You can say, I'm going to do better. That was not great. I feel sad about it, but it's not attacking yourself. Okay. And in a way, you could say that's sort of the karma, like having some regrets. When we're younger and less aware, we do things and later say, oh my God, what was I thinking? That's natural karma. But as long as you allow that and you open up to the compassion to that moment, you actually grow from that. That's a learning experience. All right. Yeah. Anyone else want to bring up a response to this question? I'm sure everyone can think of things. How about something you did well? We don't have to stay negative, do we? Something you did well and it had a nice result. You, yeah, Linda, you're muted. Yeah, I can make it easier. I can ask you to unmute.
Okay. How about now?
Perfect.
Okay. So I know as far as myself, if I'm tired or hungry, that's not my best self. The best I have learned through many years that the best thing I can do is
Hmm.
say nothing, because if something comes out, it's not good. It creates more problems and hurts
Yeah.
people's feelings and so on and so forth.
And you're actually building up your clarity by restraining what you know is going to be a negative impulse. That,
Absolutely.
that's also creating good karma by reinforcing your judgment. Practicing judgment is a skill. It's a habit, a positive habit. Okay, just want to let you know it's not only that you're holding back, but you're building up some awareness that
Yep.
serves you and other people, I guess. Yeah.
Yes.
Anyone else want to say something?
I have a question, a comment or question.
Yeah.
If like you say something like, "Oh, karma will happen, karma will take care of it," can that karma skip your generation, go to another generation, and then hurt someone else you love?
Like do you mean does your karma go to somebody else?
Yeah, so like I heard some people will say, but just be careful what you do because the the
Oh, I
negative
see.
things might not happen to you, but it might happen to someone else you care for.
This is like the Greek tragedies. They were big on that, like
Mhm.
multi-generational karma. They didn't call it karma, but I forget which. There's some fairly well-known stories where, the grandchildren suffer the results of what their grandparents did.
Yes.
But no, that's not a direct idea because again, this is a more subtle web of causes and effects. So yes, if you make a choice, you're setting up an environment for other people. I haven't talked about this. We're affected by what's around us, not only our past karma, but our environment affects us. That's why we try to choose to be with people who are a good influence or, caring and thoughtful. So if we do something that's a bad choice, other people might get affected by choosing a response based on what you did. So if you say, all Eskimos are ignorant, and then your child hears that and they meet an Eskimo, they might misbe. I'm choosing this because I hope no one hears an Eskimo. I have to choose an example. And then they might misbehave to that group and cause their own karma because of what the environment you gave to them, they take it in. So they've got responsibility, but so do you if you said something negative like that. So it's a little more complicated than I did something wrong and my family, my descendants are going to suffer from it because everyone has a choice of how they respond to a given stimulus. Does that help, Janine?
Yes, yes, thank you. Yes, because I've heard that a lot sometimes.
Uh, you know, yeah, it's important not to, karma is not deterministic or mechanistic. It's, there's free choice all along the way. So even though we will have consequences from our choices, we can break that chain of cause and effect, cause and effect, cause and effect. We can interrupt that chain by our awareness. And other people around us can also make choices um, based on their own insight. So don't let anything make you think it's I made a mistake and now my children are doomed, or whoever is doomed to suffer these effects. They can choose their own way.
Okay,
All right. Yeah.
thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, now, let's see. Yeah, we have some time. All right. Again, this is a bit, I'm going to get right into this liberation um, approach. But first, this is another relevant point. There's good karma and bad karma, but there's also non-producing karma. When we act in an awakened way, we don't create any more karma. So good karma might be, I'm getting an ice cream for dessert and I'm enjoying it. The enjoyment is actually the karma, the ability to enjoy something, a pleasure is good karma. Something that hurts. Um, I didn't sleep well and then I fell down the steps and I'm hurting and I'm angry with myself. That's maybe bad karma. But what if you act from the heart and you make life better for people around you? You're nice to the cashier at the supermarket if you're still using the cashier, not the machine. So you're friendly and the cashier was in a bad mood and you said, I can't believe you made the right change without even using the computer. That's great. Not too many people can do that. And then they smile and there's this connection happens. And when that connection happens, you're both free. You're both feeling this liberation. And it's intangible, but you know when it happens. And that's an example of non-producing karma. It's actions that create freedom and liberation. It's not based on pleasure or pain, although there's some pleasure in having a nice communication, but really there's this freedom that opens up. Everything's okay. I don't have to worry. That kind of freedom. And that's as you get more connected to your insight and your understanding, you can create more of this liberation, non-producing karma. Um, and good karma is better than bad karma just because it allows us to function more successfully. We're not wrestling with pain and anger. At least we have some comfort and we can start to look for more wisdom. I read this somewhere totally unrelated to Buddhism or even karma, but I thought I like to bring in outside examples to show that it's everywhere. This kind of wisdom is everywhere if we have our eyes open. So a child said, love is what's in the room with you at Christmas if you stop opening presents and just listen. So, what is that child saying? It's not good or bad. I'm not getting a gift. It's not about the gift. I get a nice toy. It's this intangible connection that goes outside of the individual. We're all connected. Um, what kind of a karma would result from the child saying that?
Good karma.
I think so. Good karma and maybe some non-producing karma because the people let go of the gifts, let go of that moment of looking around, seeing all the decorations, and they're feeling the presence of this moment, being in the moment. And sometimes a child can open that door. Sometimes an adult can open that door too. I think that's the purpose of all those presents. If people are still doing that, it's really to create a feeling of safety and openness, freedom. So the material part of it gets in the way sometimes. You get all this junk accumulating in your wherever you live, and what you really want is the joy of connection, love, knowing that life is okay. It's really what it's about. So, by the way, I am recording this, and you'll all get a link for the recording too, because there's a lot of material here. So absolute and relative truth, they're both valid. So absolute truth is a statement such as, we should love everybody. Everyone is valuable. Everyone's important. And that's true. Everyone deserves love, no matter who they are. However, if you're with this certain person you might be able to think of, they drive you up a wall. Every time you're with them, you get into a fight or they do something that gets you anxious or angry. That's the relative truth. Some people are hard to be with. And we have to also acknowledge that we limit our time with someone like that because our own mental health is important also. Think about that. And that can cause a conflict. If you think I should be good, I'm a good Christian, Jew, Hindu, Muslim, or Buddhist. I have to love everyone. I have to be kind to everyone and spend time with them. They want to be my friend, even though they keep yelling at me. Well, no, sometimes you have to have a boundary and say, I know my limits. That's a relative truth, and that's also valid. So I can love people, but I don't have to be their best friend and spend every day with them, right? That's one example. If there's anyone who hasn't spoken who wants to say something, you're very welcome to do that. Anyone want to type into chat or say something? Any reactions? By the way, anyone I didn't welcome yet, welcome. Glad to see you here. And you will get a recording. You know, I'm going to skip the let's take a vote. Who wants to do more meditation? Yeah, okay, we're in. 3 more minutes. Okay, I'm starting the timer. Again, observe your thoughts. Don't try to fight with them. And follow your breath if you want to come back to some basic sensation. Okay. If any of you are going to try meditation and you're not accustomed to it, one thing is usually it'll often take 5 or 10 minutes before your thoughts really start to slow down. So 3 minutes is not much, but seemed like worth doing a little bit of meditation so you can try that. I know some of you, I'm sure, already meditate, but again, if you can do 5 to 10 minutes, you'll have more of an experience of it. Okay. I'm going to go quickly through. Maybe I won't go quickly through all the slides. If this ever happens again and you're at a meeting and I don't share slides, let me know. My mistake, I didn't mention it. But anyway, I'm talking through it, so I don't think you missed a lot. And I'll send the slides with the recording. Okay. So one thing about following these principles is that we're not meant to do these things alone. There's a principle of having community and having connection with other people and accomplishing our path together with other people. It doesn't mean that they have to be aware that they're in on it with us, but we're conscious of other people, how we treat them with kindness and compassion. So we're not doing it just by turning mindfulness inside and trying to create some mindset. It's not an artificial process like that. It's coming back to reality that we are all connected. We're not isolated. And, even infants, if one child starts crying, the other infants will also start crying. There's a human empathy that's built into us. We're meant to be our natural essence is connected and compassionate. So that's how we have to, if we want to achieve our potential, it means being our full natural selves, which is caring and aware of other people and of ourselves, kind to ourselves as well as to other people. So this is addressed as the four immeasurables, and Peter mentioned that. What's the difference between good karma and non-producing karma or non-karma? Liberation has to do with not being dependent on pleasure or inflicting pain on ourselves, like ascetics used to starve themselves to be more spiritual. But that's not the way we want to practice. We practice by being aware of our full selves as human beings, which is very liberating and spacious. When we're hooked on good experiences, when we're hooked on pleasure, whatever type that is, even thinking I have lots of money, lots of food, any other kind of pleasure, it's okay to have some pleasure, but not to be attached to it. When we're stuck on that, we can't fully experience the moment we're in. So rather than good karma, what we ideally can find is liberation from all karma, so that we're not caught in the chain of cause and effect, and we can act with wisdom and see what's around us fully and have the most impact in a positive way. That's what it is to be free of karma. We're not free of the law of cause and effect. We're never free of that, but when we're more wise, we can choose with good understanding what our causes are, what we're making happen, what we're planting for the future. So we're no longer controlled by results, but we are still, if we do something wrong, we're going to have some result from that action, especially if it's intentional. You understand the difference? With wisdom, we can avoid creating karma of the future, but it doesn't mean the law of cause and effect stops. It's always there. It's just the nature of our human existence. So the four immeasurables are loving kindness, compassion, sympathetic joy, and equanimity. And I'll explain those each briefly. Loving kindness might be the first two are the more obvious ones. Loving kindness is kindness. When you're being nice to someone, thoughtful. Like if someone's picking up the garbage, the town you live in, and you see them, you say, "Hi, how are you?" Or "Thank you." I always do that. Say thank you. And I give them a gift around the end of the year, whatever holiday that happens to be. So, one reason is that they don't get a lot of recognition. They're doing this job, right? How many people, appreciate it? So I feel when there's a lack of appreciation, I want to give some. If they're getting tons of appreciation all the time, I might be more neutral and not throw some more appreciation at them. Let them see some equanimity, right? So you really adjust these things to the circumstances. So loving kindness is offering kindness to people and having a kind attitude. Compassion is, I think we know what that is. If someone's having a hard time, you try to give them comfort, whether it's a smile or a gift or a hug, depending on who the person is and what the relation is. So compassion is some way of expressing your connection to someone else who's in pain. Sympathetic joy means if someone else is happy, we're happy for them, not jealous. And equanimity is peace of mind, stability, like you're not thrown by different circumstances. Excuse me. I've used an example in the past. If you're in a theater and there's a fire in the back of the theater, if you have equanimity, you can help everyone get out safely. If you're panicking, you might get trampled along with everyone else. So equanimity is very important. Um, any question about these four immeasurables? Take a moment to take them in. I don't think these four are inevitably the exact only four qualities that could be mentioned, but I think they do. Yes, one moment, Kelly. I think they do cover a good range of the positive things we ideally offer in life. Kindness and compassion, they're similar, but they're a little bit different. And then sympathetic joy makes sure we're not jealous. That's not covered by the first two. And then equanimity talks about not losing yourself in daily events, keeping your mind focused and clear. Kelly, yes, what's on your mind?
Just the comment was, it made me think of like I can have compassion when I see somebody else acting out. Particular person in my life is always reacting and seems jealous of my good fortune at times. And then at first, when I met this person, it kind of threw me off and I just didn't want to be around them and just got a bad vibe from them because of their reactionary
Mhm.
behavior. Although I know they're suffering in other areas, but it made me see where I have been that way in the past. So they're teaching me.
Mhm.
And then I see where I don't want to be that way anymore. And I take the action to behave in a more sympathetic and joyful, be happy for the person and recognizing too that they're suffering. So I find that compassion for that individual, whereas in the past I would have just avoided them and said, oh, they're just this or that, and been, kind of pigeonholed them into this bad character type person.
Mhm.
Whereas today, I just embrace them and know that they're just doing the best they can and that they suffer from whatever it is inside of them
Mhm.
that's
Yeah,
causing them to react in
beautiful.
that manner.
That's
That's all.
terrific. Congratulations. And you said today, like you just started with that approach? Yeah.
Probably in the past, yeah, 6 months maybe.
Oh, okay. Oh, today meaning like these days you're handling it differently. Yeah. Well, that's growth for sure. That's you're creating freedom for yourself and for that other person when they see that you're not reacting to their kind of those energies you're talking about and that you're more aware. That'll help them say, okay, I can let go of this behavior and somebody cares about me as a person. I can care about myself as well. So you're helping them care for themselves, and that can help reduce those other actions. All right, good. It's I wish we all knew this from birth. It would make the world a better place, right? Somebody had mentioned moralism, and yeah, these principles are not moralism like judgment, but having good principles can be helpful. So again, there's sort of a middle way. We can use ideas to guide us. I should be nice to people. That's a moral concept, right? But the actual moment of being nice to someone ideally you also connect from the heart and you genuinely express that kindness from wanting to be kind, not just because I'm supposed to be kind, but having the right principles can help us um, tune into that and make the right choices. So that's the middle way again. We should use determination to try to understand what to do in a given situation. Sometimes we have to pause and consider what's going on here. If I do this, what will the result be? If I do that, what will the result be? So sometimes it's good to choose carefully. But ideally, we want to create more kindness, compassion, joy, and equanimity, peace of mind, focus in the world. The opposite of that is clinging to yourself as a separate person who needs to be protected, defended. You have to fight if somebody treats you wrong. Those things create more conflict. So we're trying to help reduce that isolation in the world and create more connection. And that creates more peace. So, okay, we reached, I think this is the last slide. So now we can be very interactive and I don't think these are extremely hard, but maybe a little stimulation about how to apply the four measurables in each situation. So a close friend is getting married. I listed the four measurables on the same slide here. So which ones do you think, or one or more, what do you think applies here? Your friend is getting married. Which immeasurable do you apply?
All of them.
Well, you can never
Well,
go
it
to
might
all of
be
them, all of the above. But which one is predominant, would you say?
loving kindness.
Sympathetic joy, Cameron wrote. I agree with that. The person's in a joyful event, you celebrate with them, right?
Mm,
Look, you're also right, Kirsten. I guess we can always apply these, and some a little more than others, but 100% about sharing in the joy of the moment. If you didn't do that, everyone would say, "What? You jealous? You wanted to marry that person? Is that what's going on?" So, the natural response should be, if you're a good friend, that you have sympathetic joy.
that's true. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, I think that's most relevant. The second might be equanimity, but that's not the main focus here, right? Like, do you get drunk and start falling all over the floor because you're celebrating? No, I think you have to also keep some equanimity in the occasion. All right, a coworker is panicking due to a financial loss. What might you apply?
Equanimity
Yes, yes,
and compassion.
and compassion. Yes, I think both. Like, oh my God, this is horrible. It's a disaster. Oh no. So you want to keep equanimity, right? But also compassion for what they're feeling. Yeah, I would say those two. I agree with you. Okay, your house is flooded. What? Kelly, I hope this never happened. You pictured that, right? It happens to people in some locations quite a bit.
Oh,
So what would you need the most in this situation?
I would need self-compassion.
Hmm,
Well, and I had my house flood.
you did.
Very difficult.
Um, yeah. Self-compassion. I like that. I didn't think of that, but yeah, I was thinking equanimity.
Mm.
But self-compassion, yeah. So,
It'll be okay.
yeah,
Mhm.
I'm considering it because I agree. I'm trying to put it in words. Like if you don't have self-compassion,
Yeah,
you're going to, you know, why didn't I get waterproofing? Uh,
yeah,
the weatherman didn't predict this. I
yeah,
should have done this or that. So with self-compassion, you don't beat yourself up, right?
yeah, yeah,
And
exactly.
equanimity. So I don't, Cameron, I don't see sympathetic joy as being, yeah, if your house is flooded, maybe that was for something else. Maybe that was for the previous one. Yeah. Okay.
I think equanimity as well, although I really liked your self-compassion, Heather. I thought that right off the bat too. But equanimity as well, right? Because you need
Yes.
to kind of keep a level head, I would think. Try to at least.
Yeah, I think those two. I agree. Those two. Um, yeah, and Cameron, I see you did the sympathetic joy. That was for the previous with the wedding, I think. So, all right. Now, someone you have problems with gets a great job promotion. Oh, I skipped one. We'll go back. Someone you have problems with as a person gets a great promotion at work. What do you bring to play into play in that case?
Sympathetic joy,
Mhm.
Yeah.
self-compassion.
Self-compassion if you didn't get the promotion. Well, mainly I think it's sympathetic joy. Just, remind yourself again, this is where the right understanding, if you know the Eightfold Path, right understanding is part of that. Like I can be angry and resentful, but no, sympathetic joy is helpful here. And in the future, you'll be happy you did that. You know, if you act out on revenge or, mean-spiritedness, later on you'll regret it. You will, you know, that's karma. So we use sympathetic joy, even if you don't really love that person and they didn't do the right things to get the promotion, you can still say, congratulations, that's a great accomplishment. You don't have to go overboard either and be fake, but you can still congratulate them. Someone once said, you want to be have the bigger mind. Yeah. So going back, your neighbor's child comes over to visit and is making a big mess in your house, in your place of residence. What do you need
I
very
think
badly?
I would say loving kindness. I have my grandchildren come over
There you go.
to them.
Yeah, loving kindness.
All of,
Probably
I
all of them.
feel like all of them.
Well, maybe
No,
self-compassion.
oh joy,
Yeah.
well, joy.
Maybe, if they're happy, you can have some sympathetic joy, right?
Mhm.
But I would say first is loving kindness that helps you, you love them even though they're acting like kids who are a little out of control. Uh, but
Equanimity.
I still love you, kids, even though you're driving me crazy. And yeah, sympathetic joy and equanimity. I would say the one you leave out, unless it's self-compassion, but I would say number one is loving kindness. Remind yourself you love them, and sympathetic joy because they're happy. Oh, you're having fun. You wrote on the wall. Oh, now please don't do that anymore. Okay. Um, all right, let's go on to you're in a beautiful location watching the sunrise over forest and hills.
Mm.
I'd say loving
Sympathetic joy.
kindness.
Well, usually that's towards another person.
Joy.
I don't, I wouldn't go with that one. Um,
Equanimity?
Joy.
I'm
Joy.
thinking equanimity. I think this is a tough one though. Yeah, because I'll tell you why. When you have equanimity, you can absorb the moment. Like
Mm.
your mind is at peace, at rest, and you can take in the moment fully. So to me, number one would be equanimity. Um, Maybe if you're being kind to yourself, Kirsten, like you're allowing yourself to let go of all the worries or everything else. I'm going to give myself the gift of a sunrise. I'm giving myself the gift of a sunrise and enjoying it. So that's loving kindness to yourself. Is that what you had in mind?
Well, in my head, when I said loving kindness, I'm thinking more of like, how do you differentiate? Because with that, I was thinking more of loving kindness, like having that feeling in my heart, right? When you're there and you're in the moment. So
Uh,
it's like you're I'm just picturing that you're being filled with that feeling, right? So loving kindness just
Mm.
came out. So not towards anything other than the fact that you are there, like that
Yeah.
Yeah,
you're
yeah,
being
I'm
filled
thinking
with
about it.
that.
So
For
you're
the
having that positive feeling. Is that sympathetic joy in that case? Except that's definitely for someone else, right?
Could be for
loving
the people who usually live there.
loving kindness for the experience. I don't
I'm
know.
not sure. I'd have to think about it. It could be, but I do agree. What you're pointing to, Kirsten, whichever one we identify, you're pointing to that, allowing that nice feeling of experiencing the moment, right? So, I guess I'm putting it under equanimity, but that's debatable. I see that.
Although I guess equanimity as well would be because you don't want to get too overwhelmed, right?
Hmm.
You could go the other way,
That's
right? And
true.
show a lot of, like if you're me, like I'm often seen in public, like crying my eyes out, right? Like equanimity. So you kind of have to like keep it reeled in. I don't know.
No, you have a point. There are people who will, pay thousands of dollars to see a sunrise. So maybe that's too much. That's my judgment, though. But seriously, like if you see a sunrise, it's beautiful, but it's that moment. It's not the end of the world either. It's not now I can die in peace. It's like beautiful. Next, next moment, next moment, next moment. And each moment is wonderful, but we're not clinging to that sunrise either. So that's equanimity. And last is you see a homeless person on the street who truly looks hungry.
Loving
What, Peter? Did you say something, Peter?
Compassion.
Yeah, compassion. I agree. Yes, I agree, Kelly. Yeah. So, yeah, so I just wanted to make sure you have some practical concepts of how these things apply because we all live our daily lives and we run into situations and we can think, how do I want to behave? Um, if there's somebody who has gotten on your bad side and you're angry at them, sometimes the best thing you can do is just be polite and say hi. You know, none of this is supposed to make you phony, but if you feel like you've been alone all day and you see someone who normally irritates you, you can still say, it's nice to see you. You have to use your judgment, what's truthful, but certainly don't act out on the anger because that doesn't go anywhere good. Um, any comments? We have a few more minutes, and that's the last slide. Any other questions or comments? Has this been helpful? Um, are you specifically, do you have a better sense of what karma is and how to work with it?
Yes.
Yeah, good. Any other thoughts today?
Mm. It's good for me to know that I can always rewrite my story, that I don't have to stay stuck in a mindset that was given to me from my, you know, relatives or my community,
Hmm.
that I don't have to remain stuck in all that.
Yeah,
So thank
that's
you.
that's a good lesson. Yeah,
Mhm.
to take away, we can change our future. Some things we can change very quickly and we'll see a result same day or same minute. Others we work on for 10, 20, 30, 40 years, and so on. And but the beauty is it's a never-ending path of good things. I'll give another quote. It's a path that's good in the beginning, in the middle, and in the end.
Hmm.
So I think that's important too. I'm glad you brought it up. We do have ability to control things, but sometimes we can use help, like have a good friend who knows how to relate with you and listen to you, and you listen to them, and maybe a wise friend, or an equal friend who you share things with, so you're not alone. It can be a long path for some of these things. So, take good care of yourselves and get the source support you need and enjoy life while you're doing all this. That's what I'll end with that. All right. I'm not sure when
Thank
I'm
you.
having another meeting because I'm trying to do some writing and
Okay.
slow down at least over the summer, but you will get, I will notify you all, of course. And I'll send you a link for the recording. Sorry about not sharing these slides initially. All right. Enjoy your day.